Hello, and welcome to the final session of the Present and Awesome Summit. I'm Elissa Weinzimmer, founder of Voice Body Connection and the host of this week of conversations. And I am here today on the final day with Ashley Feinstein Gerstley to talk about money, presence and your money. And this is, I feel like we've been going really deep this week, and obviously since money is a topic that we often don't talk about, I think we can go somewhere today and get really present with some real stuff. So Ashley, hello and welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be the wrap-up conversation.
Thank you. So I'll just say a little bit more about Ashley before I let her talk about herself. Ashley is the founder of The Fiscal Femme, which is a financial wellness company specifically geared towards women, but really I think your tools and tips are for everyone. You can say whatever you want to say about that, but and Ashley and I actually know each other because we met through our female entrepreneurial community that I've mentioned earlier this week, Dreamers and Doers. But we've known each other for a handful of years at this point, and I have been your client and you have been my client. So we've really done an exchange over the years and know each other's work pretty darn deeply. So really excited to dive in today.
Amazing.
Yay!
Okay, it's been years. Jeez.
Yeah, it's probably been 2 or 3 years is my guess. Yeah, I know. Crazy. Let's start with your background. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you came to found The Fiscal Femme and what has brought you to this moment in time and doing what you do?
Yeah, of course. So my background it's funny because my background sounds like I would have known a lot about money, but I didn't. I was a finance major in college and then a finance professional in investment banking. And then I was really bleeding through my money my savings when I moved to my next job. And I realized I knew nothing about money, and that if I didn't with all this finance background, other people probably didn't either. And I started reading. And when I was reading, I found that a lot of the information was really daunting, unnecessarily, and boring, and often written by older white men. Mm-hmm. And so as I departed on my money journey, I got over a big fear of mine to write and have a voice in the internet. and I started sharing what I was learning, and people started asking me for help, and other websites asked me to write for them. And I thought, you know what, this is a thing. And from my work in personal finance, I found that the numbers are really important and we don't learn about them, but what's even more important is the emotional behavioral side of money. And so I got certified as a coach and tied that into my work, which I think is something that makes us unique, is having both aspects. And then I started seeing clients and then saw trends. And what really amazed me was I thought, I'm having issues, and probably people who make similar amounts of money to me or less have issues, but I didn't realize that everyone struggles with money no matter how little or much they make, and that we often struggle with very similar things. And so I created a course called the 30-Day Money Cleanse that represents and helps us with those mindset shifts and teaches my philosophy. And then that's actually turning into a book, which is very exciting.
So exciting. So exciting. And I'll just speak for a second to the 30-Day Money Cleanse and say that it's amazing and was such a powerful process for me to go through and go, oh, wow, like I'm not being mindful, there you go, about that and like certain aspects of how I'm saving or spending my money. And so what I love about what you're able to do, Ashley, is just get really actionable, concrete, specific, and clear about something that, at least for me, money, I can go into this like sort of foggy haze land. Like, I don't know what is coming in, what's going out, right? So awesome. Okay, so I want to ask you now this question that I've asked all of the guests on the summit this week, which is, what is your definition of presence or being present? What does that mean to you?
Yes. So I'm curious to how you link the two. So for me, present feels like being in the moment and just really showing up in that moment and being there and present. And then to me, presence is being yourself or having like a fully expressed voice. That Yeah. So like if I have presence on a stage or presence in my life, then I'm being really me.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you're saying a lot of the words that I obviously throw around too as a voice and presence coach, right? Like expression, something that comes to my mind even when you say what you just said is authenticity, which is a super big buzzword, that of course does mean something, but it's, it's hard to, sometimes it's hard to put our finger on that quality of energy because we know it when we see it, but how do we actually describe it, right?
Yeah. And I feel like it's more about what you're not doing.
You want to say more about that?
Just I feel like when you're authentic or when you have your presence, that it doesn't feel hard because you're just being you, but it's harder to have all that. It's when we let go of all the other stuff.
Yeah.
Keeping us from it.
On board with that. I totally.
And I struggle with it all the time, but I know when and when I know that I'm doing it, then it's already probably gone because I'm thinking about it. But
so, well, and that's the irony, isn't it? That's the paradox of being present, is that as soon as we start, like, sometimes I picture our attention going up as like this little bird on our shoulder staring back at us and being like, are you being present? Are you being present? And it's like, oh, but little bird of attention, I need you to actually be present, not stop staring at me. Do you know what I mean? So yeah.
I used to do that when I played piano. If I was playing a song really great, I would start listening to myself and then I would start laughing. Like, wow, you're so great. Oh no.
Oh gosh, it's going so well. Ah. Yeah, exactly. Amazing. I love that definition. I think that's very workable. So then the question for me is, or that I want to ask you is, in your work around money, both in yourself, you can reflect personally, or with clients and what you see, why is being present important with our money?
It's so important. So something that you mentioned was being mindful. And I think with money, it can feel much easier, but I would argue it's not, but feel much easier to not look at it or not know what's going on or be in that haze. And I think it's a tool that we use to keep ourselves in that haze, and why we have so many accounts and so many things happening and we never really know what's going on. But I think when we know what's going on, so the words that I use often are conscious and intentional. So when we know what's happening, we're conscious of it, and we don't always want to be conscious. And I think technology has made it that much easier to not be conscious because we're not even, you think of how a Lyft works, you don't even pay for it anymore. You just hop in and out and we swipe cards. And so it's easy to not know where our money's going. But when we don't know where it's going and we're spending it because it's a habit or impulse or any way that it's mindless, it's not going to what would actually provide us the most joy. So when we're conscious and intentional, we can make choices about how to allocate our money in the way that's going to make us the happiest in the short and long term.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get vulnerable for a second and take myself back to the moment before I ever started working with you, which I know even hearing what you just said back then would have been like, la, 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 la. Like, what is she talking about? I don't know. Like, I'm fine. Right. So for someone that maybe to some degree is listening to what you're saying and going like, that I'm getting my face is flushing. I'm getting stressed out even having this conversation. I don't know. This probably is triggering me, but I don't know how to deal with it. What would be some easy first steps for someone to start getting present with their money situation?
So I think getting flushed and having a physical reaction is actually a very good sign because it shows that there's a lot to gain from doing anything, right? Because,
yeah.
Right. So I would say that's definitely a good sign, not a sign to run away even further. But something easy that I have everyone I work with do, everyone in the money cleanse, is to just keep a money journal. And that just means writing down what you spend physically if you like to write, or in notes on your phone, just putting down what's happening, what's coming in, what's going out. And the more that sounds horrible, probably the more you'll gain from doing it. And I think a way we get out of doing things in general is to be perfectionists. So someone will say, okay, I'm going to keep a money journal, and it's a new habit, so we'll forget. And then we're like, oh, I forgot, I'm done. I screwed up, like a diet. So it doesn't have to be perfect. If you forget, just pick up where you left off. And if you want, try to remember. But I think that's a really great first step to getting conscious.
I still do it every single day, everything. Yeah, it's amazing. It's such a good mindfulness practice. It's so
I think so too. Yeah. And it's not necessarily like the data is great, but you can of course get the data from you're looking at your statements, but it's the act of writing it down. And I think too, of starting, the next step is observing how you felt before an expense and how you felt after. Just
Mm.
to see like if there was a trigger. Was it boredom? Were you happy after? Were you annoyed? Were you guilty? And guilty doesn't mean bad necessarily, that you don't want to make that expense. Sometimes everything we do feels guilty, but just interesting to start kind of playing detective and looking at those emotions we have when we spend.
That's a good reminder for me. That's awesome. Yeah, because I think also something that I think comes up in any realm that's kind of taboo that we, are dealing with ourselves and we're not talking to other people, like maybe our friends, but really like, I'm supposed to be great with my money. I'm supposed to be great in my sex life. I'm supposed to be great. Like I'm not supposed to have any sort of addictions at all, right? When we're dealing with stuff in that realm, we might find ourselves doing the opposite of mindful, which I would say is like compulsive, right? Doing something compulsive. And so to start recognizing the quality of energy behind our compulsion, like what makes you act compulsively, what sends you into that opposite of presence, right?
Yeah. I call those environmental toxins.
Yeah, right. Say more about that. I love that idea.
Yeah, those are the people, places, and things that get the best of our spending. And it's interesting that you mentioned the tabooness, because of course it is taboo. But it's funny because if we don't share what we're out to do with anyone, then they can't support us in that. So your best friend doesn't know that you're saving for a vacation or that you would be so thrilled to not have credit card debt. So they might even be more toxic than they even know, because they're encouraging things that are actually the opposite of what you really want, if that makes sense. So
Totally. I love that.
creating a dream team where people can support you, I think, is really important. But of course, vulnerability is involved, because you have to share about your money.
Jim says, for the money journal, it's helpful to use technology and put a daily reminder in your e-calendar. Just a thought. I love that.
I love that too. The only technology I don't recommend for a money journal is having it sync automatically.
Yeah, like a .com type thing.
Right. You don't have to, it's the same thing. You're not conscious, but to have a calendar reminder is great. To do it in an app that's manual is great. Really, whatever makes it easier is perfect.
Love it. And Lauren also says she loves this idea about sharing your saving goals. I love it too. I think that's great. That's so fun. Can you tell us, I'm sure you have probably like boatloads of these, but can you tell us a bit about like a success story? It can be your own if you want, or someone's you've seen, of going from I really wasn't present with my money to what transforms when someone does get present?
Yes. So there's something that happens it's a mindset shift that happens with most people in a money cleanse or clients, because people often think to be successful in your finances, it's going to be very restrictive, because that's how we typically, it's very dogmatic. You shouldn't be spending on this, feel bad about it, and then stay home and eat ramen and save money. But the truth is, are very conscious and intentional and align your spending with your values, you actually feel like you're living better while saving. And so I think the mindset shift that I noticed that's really a success, that when it happens, it's almost, I just know that the cycle of spending and guilt is over, because it's when saving it just is easy. So it's when you notice that some expenses fall away because they're not very exciting to you anymore, and that you understand, oh, that's not adding value. But success stories, I think, paying down debt. I have a lot of clients who pay down a lot of debt or saved for different things, bought homes. It's my favorite part of my job, of course, is getting to see everyone, because the money's a tool. So the whole point of it is to have and experience what you want. And I think there's also kind of a script that we should all want the same things. Like, these are the goals that we should be out to achieve, but each of us, money means something different. So typically a stack of cash is not that exciting. To some people it might be, but most of us, it's about what we're doing with that cash that gets us excited. And that looks very different for each of us.
I love that. I was talking earlier in the summit, I was talking Jen, when we were talking about teaching, was saying about how she really uses the idea of like focusing on who her audience is and what the message is and her purpose for, being there. And it's kind of those, we said it's like the three things of like, I'm here, you're there, what's the thread between us? And I think I hear you talking about a similar parallel here with money, which is that like, I'm here, what I want is over there, what I actually, and you can really examine like, what do you really want? And money's the thread that connects you. It's not actually like money's not the thing. Money's the currency, literally, that, connects you to the life you want to live and the things you want to realize. Do you want to say more about, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and it kind of reminds me of how I think of abundance, because yes, it's helpful to say I'm attracting more money, but to imagine the thing that you really want in explicit detail, like a visualization, I think brings about that manifestation of what you want so much more quickly. Very specifically, to know what money is doing for you or what you're excited about. And often something I found is that it's never enough, or it's already more than enough. Because you can never out-earn all of your wishes and wants. Right. You can continue to make lists, and people will say, if I just earned more, then I'd be happy, then I'd save more, and then they earn more, and then they don't. And the truth is, even billionaires have things that they can't invest in or purchase, and time is a limitation too. So there's only so much time in a day to do all these things, regardless of money. So I think it's definitely, of course, you want your basic needs to be met, and otherwise it's horrible. But a lot of it is gratitude, and yes, there's goals, but you can also enjoy what's happening already.
That's gorgeous. You know what? You did just make me think as you were saying that about like, what about someone listening to this talk who like is living in poverty, or who truly has like, I just want to go to the really real places that, people, not all of us have the privilege to sit here, wearing clothes that we're comfortable in homes that we're, renting or owning. And so what about someone who like truly money has been a limitation, a massive limitation for their whole life? What's a step forward from there?
So I think on a lot of people in true poverty are much better at all these steps than we are. They're like very conscious of where their money's going. They're allocating in the way that like more in the needs section to make sure that, so they get really good at that step. But I do think like if there's any way to get more conscious in any scenario, it's better. It's a journey for everyone. And I have, people tell me that, they thought they were great at money, but and so I do this for a living, and I'm always improving and growing in it. So I think there's always more layers to peel off to do it better. And, but yes, of course, that's a very different situation than us right now.
Yeah, no, but I appreciate what you say about that, because I actually have seen that in action where, friends who, like, I come from an upper middle class background in California. I have all sorts of privilege, which I hope I acknowledge. I've definitely been close to people in the past who don't come from the same level of privilege as I do, financially speaking. And I have seen that people are better at money than I am, for sure, who come from that background, like are just more mindful, have a healthier relationship in terms of knowing exactly what's coming in, what's going out. Like the boundaries are really clear. So I think what you're saying around necessity, and getting really clear around necessity before we go into wants and desires land. And then also even in wants and desires land, really looking at that stuff closely is really powerful.
Yeah. And I think it's easy to have your feeling of what necessity is grow as you earn more. And that's okay. I think, some people have non-negotiables that other people would think are hugely frivolous.
Actually, great example. If anyone has tuned in yesterday or hasn't watched it yet, you can watch in whatever order you want. But KJ yesterday in Presence in Your Politics talked about she was going door to door in the constituency, in the future constituency that she would be representing. And there's a pretty diverse population in terms of, you know, socioeconomic background. And she goes to one neighborhood and they say, please, can you help me get a better job? And she goes to another neighborhood and asks them, you know, what matters most to you? And they say, my azaleas, we need more azaleas. And it just made me laugh so much. And all of that is really important and matter, like to honor, to listen to someone wherever they are, to listen to ourselves wherever we are and be present with ourselves and not shame ourselves for where we are, but just, you know, trust that the azaleas are the necessity in one case and the job's the necessity in the other case.
That with equal emphasis.
Yeah, the azaleas are very serious, right? So great. Well, let's talk a little bit about the future. So I think there's probably a lot we could say. I'd love to hear both about your vision for what you see for the Fiscal Femme and for your career and how, you know, being present is going to take you to greater and greater levels in your business, but also as individuals with financial lives, as we all are, what's in our future that you see?
Love this question. So this year I've thought a lot and done a lot of work around the mission of the Fiscal Femme. And what I found really drives me is justice and equality. And I believe that finances or our financial well-being has a lot to do with that. Especially when you talk about the gender pay gap and being able to negotiate. Sorry about that.
You're allowed to get a phone call.
And being able to negotiate what you're worth. I think it's a lot easier to negotiate when you are not so dependent on your next paycheck and being able to negotiate, take bigger risk in your career and get promoted more. I think you're able to leave bad situations if you have financial stability. So to me, I think, and also when I think about, I've also done a lot of work around wealth and earning, and there's a lot of baggage, even when you're talking about poverty, a lot of baggage around having money and feeling greedy and enjoying more frivolous things. And I think imagining what you would do with your wealth. So if all of the people that I work with were extremely wealthy, like, there'd be so many incredible things happening in the world.
Yeah.
So I think those are all the things that drive me, is like what can come of the financial well-being of essentially like the entire generation. But yeah, so the book is coming, and then hopefully a lot of the work I do, I find that I'm doing similar things over and over with clients. And so I hope eventually someday there will be a technology that we can use to our advantage rather than take us further away from financial well-being, but something like that. And yeah.
I love that. Do you want to speak a little bit specifically to, since your business is focused on women specifically, you already talked about it a little bit with the gender pay gap, et cetera, but as women specifically, what can we do? Like, I just would love to hear you talk more about something you just already started to say, which is that when we empower ourselves and become wealthy, or, you know, work towards having more wealth, there are amazing things that can happen in the world. I'd love to hear you talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. So I guess what should I talk about? You know, I know you mentioned at the beginning, like the work I do is for everyone. It works for everyone, but I think a lot of the gaps, right? The investing gap, the pay gap, we have the pink tax, women have a lot working against us. And the financial industry, specifically investing, is very patriarchal. And I think can be intimidating and just not as attractive to women, but studies show that women are actually better investors than men when they do invest. I think my family's here. Hold on one second.
Okay, no problem. I love what Ashley is saying. So great. She told me she has her family coming to visit this weekend, so
Sorry, I didn't realize we live so close to the airport. They're already here.
That's amazing. Amazing. We'll wrap up in just a couple minutes.
Yeah. No rush. So what exactly would you like to hear? Because I think I'm just.
Yeah, I know. Well, a pep talk, I think, is, I guess, what I'm asking for, because, like, I know I could use it, and because it's really easy to just be doing things as they've been done for a long time and be like, oh, if I get this job, I'll be happy. If I get this paycheck, I'll be happy. Like, especially since a lot of people tuning in for the summit are entrepreneurs, which I was actually thinking this morning about, what does an entrepreneurial spirit even mean? Because some of us who are in the summit have our own businesses. Some of us are what you might call intrapreneurs, which are people who are taking an entrepreneurial spirit into a company, and, building. So I guess actually, maybe let me turn that question to you first, is what do you think entrepreneurship is?
I guess anyone who is creating something.
Yeah.
Like the first thing that comes to my mind, if you're creating something or leading something.
Yeah.
But, and as a pep talk, I think if you're in a place that you're not feeling financially well, usually I find that most people are doing better than they think, because the average American has less than 400 saved at any age. So
wow.
Like our average is pretty low. But I think so if there's a big difference between where you are and where you want to be, I think little steps and just taking an active role in your financial well-being. And something that drives me often is not necessarily doing it. I am enough to do it just for me, but sometimes it helps me when I'm negotiating or when I'm asking for something to think of that I'm doing it on behalf of women everywhere. And doing this so I can bring women with me, and that gets me more riled up and more excited, and it's motivation, where of course, like, I should be motivation enough for myself, but that can help make it even more urgent and more exciting.
Do you know what? That already resonates with me. So even just hearing that of like, okay, I'm negotiating a contract with a company. I could be tempted, to negotiate in a way that isn't totally empowering, but to think like, how would I want my best friend, who I believe in so much, to negotiate this contract and to do it on behalf of her and women everywhere? That's really powerful. I love that.
And then you do it, and then you tell them how that you did it.
And you can do it too. And then we all, I think part of what is shifting too, both in money and really across the board, is like, we're not in a zero-sum game anymore. We're starting to realize, like, it's not like, oh, if you get that contract, I don't get that contract. If you make that money, I can't make that. Like, that's not how it works. Money is an endless resource.
Yeah.
We made it anyway, right? Like, we created it. And so to realize that getting present and going for what is our individual best is actually going to elevate ourselves and everyone around us.
Right. If I'm getting wealthy, that doesn't take anything away from you getting wealthy.
Exactly.
Or your best friend getting wealthy. And the things that we would do with that wealth would bring everyone up.
Yeah. And especially if people are working towards, as you're talking about, social justice and, just being present and mindful with the world around them and tackling whatever problem feels most important or exciting to them, then having the money to be able to address those issues is really powerful. It's power, right?
Money is power, yeah, in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Ashley, it's so amazing to have you on the summit. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Really cool. And I will just say to everyone who has tuned in, or if you're watching later, that this is indeed the final call of the Present and Awesome Summit. However, the Present and Awesome Summit is a kickoff for the next round of my How to Have Presence class, which we've been talking about all week, and I talked about yesterday during my Real Talk session. So if you're interested in diving in with me, I would love to have you. And actually, I'm offering the first week of class as an audit for free. So if you want to see what class is all about, first week we talk about habits, as Ashley knows. We were just talking about that before, about what are my habits in terms of what shrinks my presence, what grows my presence, what are my bad habits, and how do we even reframe this idea around what is a good or a bad habit. So we'll be talking about that on Tuesday night. I would love for you to join us for the first week and the whole class. You can learn more at howtohavepresence.com.
And I highly recommend it. It's transformed how I present, as I experienced last week.
Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to say where you were talking last week or how that went?
I spoke at Barclays to their, it was their women's network and their emerging network, millennial group. And I
So
just felt, we talked about how I kind of get presenty, and I think it's my corporate investment banking experience where you want to be a certain way, look a certain way. And I felt like it was my first time where I was just up there much more relaxed with presence, being myself, and that was shining through. And I think it has a lot to do and everything to do with our work together and the course.
I love it. I'm so glad that's happening for you. Yay, congratulations, and yay, Barclays, for having you. That's awesome.
It's really fun.
Amazing. All right, you guys. Susie says she loved it. Lauren says thank you. This is so great. Thank you all for being here today. I will be in your inbox with information about class. And if you want to find Ashley, she is at
thefiscalfemme.com.
Perfect. Amazing. And she's got free resources and amazing stuff over there too. So thank you all so much for tuning in this week. It's been so fun. I've really enjoyed these conversations, and I will see you again soon.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye, Ashley. Bye, everyone.